Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Yasharanandana Brajajana Ranjana Nandana Yasharanandana Brajajana Ranjana Nandana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Yasharanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasharanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Jaya Radha Gopinatha Shri Radha Gopinatha Shri Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Cham Vishnupad Param Sivaraj Kachara Shrotar Shata Sivang Kriya Sabhaya Charanda Bhaktivedanta Swami Vishnu Prabhupada Ki Cha Krantaraj Shima Bhaktatam Ki Cha Nantakoti Vaishnavinda Ki Cha Nitya Gaura Premanandi Hare Hare Bol Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Hare Krishna. Today we are reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 7, Further Inquiries by Vidura, Text 35. Hinava Bhagavam Stushyat Hinava Bhagavam Stushyat Dharma Yonirchanardanaha Dharma Yonirchanardanaha Samprasidati Vayesham Samprasidati Vayesham Etat Akyahi Menaka Etat Akyahi Menaka Hinava Bhagavam Stushyat Dharma Yonirchanardanaha Samprasidati Vayesham Etat Akyahi Menaka Hinava Bhagavam Stushyat Dharma Yonirchanardanaha Samprasidati Vayesham Etat Akyahi Menaka Hinava Bhagavam Stushyat Dharma Yonirchanardanaha Samprasidati Vayesham Etat Akyahi Menaka Yena, by which either Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead, Tushyat, is satisfied. Dharma Yoni, the father of all religion, Janardanaha, the controller of all living beings, Samprasidati, completely satisfied, either, or Yesham, of those, Etat, all these, Akyahi, kindly describe, me, unto me, Anaka, all sinless one. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace of Vaitaran Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. All sinless one, because the personality of Godhead, the control of all living entities, is the father of all religion, and all those who are candidates for religious activities kindly describe how he can be completely satisfied. Purport. All religious activities are meant ultimately to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord is the father of all religious principles. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 7:16, 4 kinds of pious men, the needy, the distressed, the enlightened, and the inquisitive, approach the Lord in devotional service, and their devotion is mixed with material affection. But above them are the pure devotees, whose devotion is not tainted by any material tinges of fruitive work or speculative knowledge. Those who are only miscreants throughout their lives are compared to demons, Bhagavad Gita 7:15. They are bereft of all knowledge in spite of any academic educational career they may pursue. Such miscreants are never candidates for satisfying the Lord. Om Akyanatimirandasya Kanananshana Shadakaya Chaksharam Militam Yena Tasma Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manopishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sakrachatam Sahakana Raghunattam Vitamtam Sachivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parichana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahakana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchane Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhana Sate Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vancha Kalpatarubhashta Kripa Sindhya Evacha Patitanam Pavadibhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktarinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Thank you for listening or even coming in your case. Still, activities of Vaishnava was always inconceivable. I'm supposed to sit on the other side. Anyway, so we continue discussion of how Vidura is putting forward many large variety of different inquiries to Vidura, to Maitreya Rishi. But first, I want try to remember. Most recently, I just finished reading 4th canto and started 5th canto. So, the last chapter of 4th canto, no, I think second last, is when the Prachetas get to the darshan of Lord Vishnu in his 8-handed form, and there's so many beautiful verses there. But like one of the most famous one is, which describes some of the glories of hearing Krishna Katha, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. And so it said, Yatretyante katam rishtas Trishnaya prashamo yataha Nirvam yatra bhuteshu not vekyo yatra kashtana. Sorry, not very fluent yet. So, but yeah, it's a beautiful verse describing some of the effects for the audience hearing Krishna Katha. And so it starts off with saying that, I'll try to somehow remember the translation, it's very beautiful also. So whenever there is a discussion of the pure topics of the transcendental world, there is the members of the audience forget all their material hankerings, at least for the time being. And not only that, but they also don't feel any envy between each other anymore, and they are free from any fear or anxiety. So, yeah, it's very, and like every one of us has experienced that simply if you absorb yourself in listening to Srimad Bhagavatam, listening to Krishna Katha, then you just forget it. Even your mind might have been so disturbed by material hankerings or other material things, but yeah, it just goes away, at least for the time being. That it's said there, and yeah, naturally you don't feel any envy with anyone else, even if you might have had a quarrel before. And then the verse after is also beautiful, which kind of, because we might think with our material vision especially, that how can it be, like so many times we hear hearing glorified, but how can it be so powerful just listening some sound? But so for the verse after that then explains how such potency is possible there. So it says, Yatra Narayana Sakshad Bhagavan Yasinam Gatihi. And anyway, let me start with those first. So Yatra Narayana Sakshad means obviously that at those places there Lord Narayan, the Supreme Lord, is personal, Sakshad is personally, directly present. And who is Narayan? He's the goal of all the sannyasis, of all those in the renounced order, like Nrsimha Prabhu mentioned yesterday, or when was it? That sannyas is the topmost in the society, in like out of the varnas we know brahmanas are topmost and sannyas is even above them. So in Narayan is the goal of all of them. There's no other point in taking sannyas other than realizing the Lord. So samstuyate sadkatasu means, samstuyate means worshipped, sadkatasu, so by talks about me, that in that way, that is how Lord Narayan is perfectly worshipped. And it's the last line, sadkatasu. Last one escaped me now. But yeah, it's only a few of those. There's really so many beautiful verses in between the Lord and the Prachetas, even in the whole, like in the whole section with the Prachetas especially. I find, like even obviously Rudra Gita a bit earlier, where Lord Shiva instructs them. It's also so beautiful, and yeah, but so just an introduction to hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. So, and in today's purport, Prabhupada, he basically points out two famous verses from Bhagavad Gita, which from the 7th chapter, where Krishna categorizes basically all the people in human society between the four pious men and the four impious, the Sukriti and the Dushkriti. And so, which in one sense already one might think, well, how doesn't seem very, doesn't seem the right thing to do for Krishna to actually, he himself directly categorizing, in other words, he's judging, he's discriminating, hey, these are the good ones and these are the bad ones. So foolish people might criticize him for that, but yeah, it shows that, as we know, until you actually on the Uttama Adhikari platform, you need to discriminate in the material world simply because the material world is by nature full of duality, and so as we know, it's conducted by the three modes of nature, and like Nrsimha mentioned a few times now, it's the mode of goodness, which is the springboard or the airport from where you can take off much more easily than to the spiritual platform. So it is also significant, even though we know transcendental platform Vishuddha Sattva is completely independent of those three modes. So, like for example, just by hearing, even if you're not in the mode of goodness, still you can immediately be in the transcendental goodness. But yeah, still, even as practicing devotees, we know that's also described by, is that from Bhagavatam or by Srila Rupa Goswami, the Isvaresvara Prabhu, how does it go? Palisheshu Tvishachcha Prema Maitri Kripopeksha Yakaroti Samatimaha. So where it describes the Kanishta, the Madhyamadhikari and the Uttamadhikari, and for devotees in general, we have to aspire to try to act on the Madhyamadhikari platform, where we do have to discriminate between the envious, the innocent, or the devotees whom we want to seek friendship with, associate with, the innocent to whom we want to preach to, and the envious whom we have to avoid because they'll simply drag us down, because we can't help them and they will simply bring bad influence onto us. So we need to discriminate. But interestingly also, recently like Anshmo, you have been discussing Uddhava Gita, and told us that there Krishna at one point tells to Uddhava, actually, after describing what is good, what is bad, that still, ultimately, actually, even to discriminate like that is a bad quality in itself. So eventually we need to give it up. And considering both those 2 points, I was reasoning that it shows us that yes, in our stage we need to discriminate, but at the same time, knowing the ultimate goal, we should also not just brush it aside completely, but it shows us that we have to be cautious even when discriminating, but not to do it in a, like, never in a derogative way, or in a way that we think, oh yeah, these are bad, so demons, just going too much into that, because that would mean that we think, oh, I'm good when they are bad, and that itself, that is definitely bad. So we should only do it in a way of understanding, yes, okay, these souls are currently under the influence of these modes, and so it's not because I myself, I'm not advanced, I'm not on the Uttamadhikari platform, I'm somehow struggling to be sincere, be serious in my practice to come to a proper Madhyamadhikari platform and then progress from there. So for my sake, because I'm not advanced, so I need to be careful, so I need to use intelligence and follow the instructions of Krishna and the Shastras of how to deal with the people and so to discriminate, but never to do it too much in a judgmental way, but to still always have a humble mood. Otherwise it's detrimental for ourselves, for our consciousness, then it's obviously that's completely against the mood of a devotee to be too judgmental. And so that's those two verses that Prabhupada quotes there. Obviously we know the first, I think Krishna actually tells the Dushkriti, right? 7:15, 7:16. Where the Dushkriti, we know, is does it start? Namam Dushkrinito Mudha Prapatyante Naradamaha Mayaya Parita Yana Asram Bhavamashritaha. So, I lost the page. In Prabhupada, and interestingly here actually in the Prabhupada, because just from the verse itself you might think, okay, there's those four kinds of Dushkriti, and the last ones, they are called the Asuras themselves. And the others you think, okay, they're somehow not so intelligent, not so fortunate, so they're Dushkriti. But you wouldn't think them as demons, but actually Prabhupada here in the Prabhupada says that they are all kind of demonic. Where is it? Those who are only miscreants throughout their lives are compared to demons. Bhagavad Gita 7:15. They are bereft of all knowledge, so bereft of all knowledge that refers to the Maya Yapirita Jnanas, to those who apparently have a lot of knowledge, but their knowledge is taken away by illusion, by Maya. Yeah, as Prabhupada says, in spite of any academic, educational career they may pursue. And then the other two, of course, we know the mudas, the grossly foolish, which are compared to just asses, donkeys, just carrying a big load, working very hard for a tiny sense gratification. And the naradamas, as actually Narasimha Prabhu recently also discussed it in context with the different, for text 31, the faith level of faith of the different people. And Naradamaya, those who don't follow the regulative principles and religious principles. And 7:16 is where Krishna tells for pious men. So that's Chaturvita Pachanti Mam Chana Sukriti Navarchana Arto Chiknasu Artati Yanicha Bharatarshapa. You know, are those who are distressed, the artha, the artarti, those who are desiring wealth, and the two kinds of looking for knowledge. So the Chikanasu, the inquisitive ones, and the jnanis, those who specifically look for the absolute truth. And so. And other than that, what Prabhupada is quoting in the purport as well is the, in contrast to those who approach the Lord for material purposes, those four kinds of people, that obviously pure devotional service means, where is it? Here. Not tainted by any material tinges of fruitive work or speculative knowledge. So here he is quoting the famous verse of Srila Rupa Goswami of Anyabilashita Shunyam Jnana Karmadya Navritam. So Shunyam of jnana or karma, of fruitive activity or speculative knowledge. And so and one more point in terms of Krishna in that section speaking to Arjuna about the four pious and four impious people, that after mentioning those Sukritina, that he also then calls right after that actually all four of them, even though like Prabhupada mentions here also, they're all for material purposes, so and that they cannot be compared to pure devotees, but Krishna still quotes them as Udara, as magnanimous, they're all great souls. And remember from one lecture in Radhashyam Prabhu, he mentions that Arjuna might think, well, Krishna, why are you praising them so much? They're not really devotees. They just come for some material purpose. And Krishna, he would think that yeah, I know that they are not, that they come to me not just for pleasing me, not because they love me, but they come with their own purpose. But still, they come to me. It's such an amazing, like, for conditioned souls, that's such a big step. So Krishna is ecstatic even just by that. So, but yeah, having said that, it's I read just yesterday actually in the beginning of 5th canto. Oh, I meant to bring the book. Anyway, where after, like last time we briefly discussed about Priyavrata Maharaj, that he was made to rule the earth by not only by his father Swayambhuva Manu, who is after all also a Mahajana and who ruled the whole Bhumandala at that time. But he was, because he was so fixed in his austerities and devotional service under the instruction of Narad Muni, that he didn't want to give that up for the sake of ruling the world. And so then even Lord Brahma himself came down, it's described. And so then when Priyavrata Maharaj eventually did rule, he had 2 wives, also it's described there. And the first wife was called Barhishmati, with whom he had 9 sons, I think, or 7, 10. Oh, sorry, yeah, no. Yeah, mix it up with then Agnitra. He had 9 sons for the 9 Varshas. But Priyavrata Maharaj, he had 10 sons, yeah. 3 out of them were Paramahamsas, and the other 7 were then to whom he divided the Bhumandala too, after he had famously encircled, followed the sun's path and thus encircled the Bhumandala, and with the rims of the chariot wheel made those huge oceans, which divided Bhumandala into how it is now, in those 7 dvipas. So, and his first son, Agnitra, was the one to whom he gave the inner island on which we are, Jambudvip. And his first son, out of the 9 sons he had, was King Nabi, who then famously got as his son Lord Rishabdev. But yeah, the section I want to come to here is how in, like, King Nabi, obviously he was a great devotee, in great devotion. He and his wife, I think Meru Devi, were worshipping the Lord, but with the desire to have a son just like the Lord himself. So, which is a material desire in itself, and that's why then. But he not only, so he obviously performed his bhakti, but in course of that he also conducted a great sacrifice, a yajna, specifically to please the Lord in order to beget a son just like the Lord. And the Lord personally actually does appear there in his 4-handed Vishnu form, coming down on Garuda. And as he appears, all the priests there who were conducting the yajna are offering prayers to the Lord, paying their obeisances, and they actually do feel ashamed, because even though they themselves were not pure devotees at that time, but still they had so much devotion and knowledge that they understood that, actually, especially upon seeing the Lord personally, which is like a very rare thing to see him face to face like that, obviously, to descend there, even at those times, on the earthly planet here. So they did realize immediately that we should be pure devotees. We should only worship the Lord for the sake of pleasing Him, and not being kind of ritualistic brahmanas, priests here conducting yajnas for some material purpose. In this case, for the sake of getting a good son for Maharaj Nabi. And so, regretting like that, they offered nice prayers, and yeah, I meant to read some purport there, but in any way, the case there in one verse, for example, they in 5:3:15, they point out about express their regret of specifically of even making the Lord come down here just for a material purpose. And actually I wanted to, so I'm trying to find it meanwhile. And Prabhupada there, he points out how, because now seeing this in contrast with, as we just heard, how Krishna glorifies even the four people who approach him for some material purpose, which because still they come to him, and so he's so pleased just by them approaching him. But here we see how expressed already by the priests themselves that they actually regret to even have bothered the Lord to come down to give them darshan, but for the sake of fulfilling the material desires of the king. And yeah, Prabhupada there, he writes quite heavy and from an interesting, a different angle of view on that, how to see that. So text 15, so 1 second. And I want to see it in the light that, because if you look only at one of them, then you might be confused, and but by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada and the devotees, we actually, I think everyone can get some proper understanding. We'll briefly discuss that. So I'll briefly read the last part of the translation and then the purport. So the priests are saying that by inviting you to this negligible sacrifice for some material motive, we have certainly committed a great offense at your lotus feet. Therefore, O Lord of Lords, please excuse our offense because of your causeless mercy and equal mind. And Prabhupada says there, the priests were certainly unhappy to have called the Supreme Lord from Vaikuntha for such an insignificant reason. A pure devotee never wants to see the Lord unnecessarily. The Lord is engaged in various activities, and the pure devotee does not want to see him whimsically for his own sense gratification. The pure devotee simply depends on the Lord's mercy, and when the Lord is pleased, he can see him face to face. The Lord is unseen even by demigods like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. By calling on the Supreme Lord, the priests of Nabi Maharaj proved themselves unintelligent. Nonetheless, the Lord came out of his causeless mercy. And then Prabhupada there quotes also 7:16, what we just discussed. And so he talks about those people who approach him in this way. Where is the not knowing? The point I want to come to. Not knowing the various activities and engagements of the Lord, such people unnecessarily disturb the Lord for material gain. However, the Lord is so kind that even though disturbed, he fulfills the desires of such beggars. So that Prabhupada is talking here about the same verse that we just discussed, where otherwise we know Krishna's viewpoint is, even he glorifies them, or even they're great souls, they come to me. So here Prabhupada says that actually such people unnecessarily disturb the Lord, and the Lord still, because he's so kind, fulfills the desires of such beggars. So, and like one point that was even in the translation I skipped that they make is about not that they don't, here they start the verse by, O Lord, you perform many wonderful activities. And so Prabhupada, on taking up on the end here, says also that not knowing the various activities and engagements of the Lord, such people unnecessarily disturb the Lord for material gain. So because they don't care personally about the Lord, they come with this material purpose, and it is to be condemned. Because for a devotee, and everyone actually should understand that the Lord doesn't need us at all. He is, as we know, He is eternally in ever increasing bliss and pleasure that He has, self-satisfied, being self-satisfied, and having unlimited associates who give Him pure love. So He doesn't need us for doing a tiny worship for some material gain. So we should understand the unlimited pastimes that the Lord performs, and that we should try to come to that platform to engage with Him in that, rather than bothering Him about small material things. And but if you read only that, then you might feel like, oh, that sounds like quite harsh. That you before Krishna says, everyone, if you come to me, I'm still pleased. It's still it's a start. But then here we hear, no, we shouldn't even bother the Lord. We should understand He is already fully blissful. So we could come then to the conclusion. I don't know if that's a word, but to the wrong conclusion that okay, so until I'm a pure devotee, then better I shouldn't disturb the Lord. Of course, that's not exactly the case, but rather we should understand that He doesn't need us, and we should. It's rather, like looking at from this angle, it's putting us in our place, that we should approach the Lord, but in a proper consciousness, knowing us completely dependent on the Lord, and coming in a humble mood, in a respectful mood, that we know, I'm not qualified in one sense, I shouldn't disturb you, but you're so merciful that still I know you're pleased when I come and try humbly to approach you and offer my devotional service. And also specifically, even though we know that the deities, the Archavatar, like our Shishi Radha Gopinath, Jagannath Baladev Subramanian, and Shishi Gauranitai, that they are personally completely the original personality of Godhead. So they also have all their pastimes, and it also applies to them, like what the priests say there when the Lord came personally, where they saw Him face to face. But at the same time, we also know that, where is it actually? That's very beautifully also there recently described how He comes, the deity form is specifically for our sake. Even though, like here, so I missed something, but because otherwise, as we know, the Lord doesn't have any business to come to this world for His sake, for His benefit. That was mentioned here somewhere also. But coming and taking this form as the deity, He specifically obviously does for our benefit, so that we can start our devotional service. And like a bit earlier there in the fourth canto also, Prabhupada in one Prabhupada, for example, nicely explains how this Archavatar is offered to the neophyte, so that he can see the real form of the Lord face to face and offer respectful obeisance to Him, worship Him, so on, and then thus gradually invoke his Krishna consciousness. And on that sentence Prabhupada gives us that deity worship is the most valuable benediction given by the Lord to beginners. So, we should never think it insignificant or unimportant to have the opportunity to see the Lord even with our materially contaminated eyes, because it's out of His mercy that He doesn't have a material form, but out of His mercy that He presents Himself like that. And another Prabhupada, I couldn't find it now, Prabhupada very nicely explains that also. Just here. So that was, also in that section of where the priest offered the prayers. So when they express the gratitude, actually, they say, for example, that you have come out of your abundant and causeless mercy in order to serve our purpose, our interest. And you have come although we have not properly worshipped you due to our ignorance. So, because this very nicely now shows the other angle of vision of understanding that when the Lord appears, it's always out of His causeless mercy, including as the Arshavatar, and actually that He does for our sake, because He doesn't need to come here. He is eternally, unlimitedly enjoying in Golok Vrindavan, where there's unimaginably, inconceivably perfect facilities for enjoyment. But He comes just, as we know, to reclaim us eventually. And so Prabhupada, a few points from that Prabhupada says that Lord Vishnu was personally present at the sacrificial arena, but this does not mean that He had any interest in His own personal benefit. And now Prabhupada compares that to the deity form. Because there, imagine that there was the scene that Maharaj Nabi and his wife, associates, and the priest, and like all, perhaps like so many members of the kingdom, were participating there and performing a yajna in order to please the Lord, but actually for the sake of getting a son for King Nabi. But still, so the Lord Vishnu personally rides down on Garuda and appears there, accepts the prayers, and gives the blessing then of telling, okay, you want a son just like me. Obviously it's not possible to have a son like anyone who can compare to me, so this means I myself will have to come, I will come. So he comes then as Lord Vishnu. There's actually, he doesn't talk more than that. It's like, imagine he comes all the way from Vaikuntha, riding down on Garuda, just to tell him, okay, that's fine. I'm sorry I can't give you a son like me, I have to come myself also. But anyway, so imagine that scene. And Prabhupada now explains that similarly the Archa Vigraha is present for the same purpose. Out of His causeless mercy, the Supreme Personality of Godhead presents Himself before us so that we can see Him. And then he elaborates on, because we cannot see obviously His actual Satchit Ananda Vigraha form. That's why He presents Himself in the form of marble, stone, or etc. And so again, it's inconceivable mercy of the Lord to be here with us in a form that we can even see Him and we can worship Him. And just one more point I want to make in, because this verse is one main point is there about Vidura is inquiring about, describe how he can be completely satisfied. So now that we have the understanding that yes, the Lord, He comes only for our benefit, for our sake, He doesn't need our service, and that we should also, we should, even though yes, we try our best to follow Srila Prabhupada, to follow the Acharyas, in order that we know that's the only way that we can try to please the Lord. And like the one prayer also they offer is that it's kind of explaining why Maharaj Nabi had this material desire, even though he was a very sincere devotee. That the state that unless one worships the lotus feet of great devotees, one will be influenced by Maya. One will, by they mentioned specifically there, by the unconquerable illusory energy of the Lord. As we know, Prabhupada obviously quotes there 7:14, Tavi Yesha Gunamaya Mama Maya Turataya, that we cannot overcome the illusory energy on our own, only if we surrender to Krishna, and He does. But how do we surrender to Krishna? It's through His devotee. So Prabhupada says there, Mahat Charana Seva, by serving the lotus feet of a devotee. And so the priest, they kind of explain, the king didn't have the fortune of having association with pure devotees, so that's why, even though he's a sincere devotee, he kept his material desire. And so, but even though as we try to serve the lotus feet of those pure devotees like Srila Prabhupada and our spiritual masters and thus the Guru Parampara, still we should never think that the Lord has to be satisfied by our service to expect Him being satisfied, but rather we always simply depend upon His mercy and I'll quickly conclude with that. So, because there's one nice, that's also in chapter 30 of 4th canto, in the section with Prachetas, where Srila Prabhupada very beautifully actually points out about how we should rather be sincerely approaching the Lord. That was the context that I was thinking about it. Is that because just now we had the festivals of Janmashtami, Vyasa Puja, and I was thinking, obviously we devotees here staying here, we are very blessed, very fortunate to be able to, even now during the lockdown, to be able to participate directly. But and so for devotees living outside, I was thinking it very easily it could always be that the mind brings the excuse, well, anyway I can't go to the temple, so what's the point even like of those festival times even to bother too much about it? I'll just go on with my life and wait until temple opens. But obviously that kind of mentality of thinking would be just the illusory energy trying to take away our enthusiasm for the devotional service. But rather if we are actually sincere, then we will be able to, even just by watching online, to feel some of this amazing atmosphere that is created at festival times, and increasing our enthusiasm for devotional service. And so in that connection there, Prabhupada very beautifully describes about this. So he, in the translation there, because I can't remember if the Prachetas are saying that. Most likely, I think. So they say that when the Lord, out of His natural compassion, thinks of His devotee, then the devotee's desires get fulfilled. Of course, it's a longer translation, that's why I took out some part of it. So, and Prabhupada there elaborates very beautifully that about the point that the Lord, out of His compassion, fulfills the desires of the devotees. And Prabhupada first starts off with saying, well, what to speak of the devotees, even the non-devotees' desires get fulfilled by the Lord, of course according to their karma and their desires. And he quotes there, Bhagavad Mata Smriti Jnanam Apohanam Cha, that whatever living entity desires, however insignificant he may be, is noted by the Lord, who gives him a chance to fulfill his desires. So at least everyone always gets a chance to fulfill desires, going on and on, life after life, different bodily forms. And the Lord is always with us, we know, as the Super Soul, and always witnesses their desires and provides the facilities to fulfill even those material desires. So Prabhupada says that if the desires of non-devotees are fulfilled, why not of the devotee? A pure devotee simply wants to engage in the service of the Lord without material desire. And if he wants this within the core of his heart, where the Lord is situated, and if he is without ulterior motive, why should the Lord not understand? And then just if a sincere devotee renders service to the Lord, all his activities prove successful, because the Lord is present within the heart and understands his sincerity. So I find this purport particularly so amazing about this. Really, Prabhupada describes here so beautifully the mercy of the Lord, and in that way also deflects any possibility that we might allow in our minds to come up of any excuses for why we can't engage in devotional service as fully as we like to, or why we we are not as advanced as we would wish to or anything. Like Prabhupada says, there's no one else, never at any time anyone else to blame other than ourselves for our lack of spiritual advancement. So, yeah, we should, it's like we know right from the beginning, the Lord is present as the super soul in everyone's heart, but our realization might not be much of that even now as devotees. But yeah, Prabhupada, he uses his language so amazingly, like here, when he says that if we consider, yeah, the Lord is here in my heart, so why should he not know what I need, and why should he not help me if I'm actually sincere? So it always comes down to, we have to question ourselves, if we actually are sincere, then we'll be successful in our devotional service. Okay, any comment from otherwise? Thank you. Just Prabhupada. Yeah, I mean, first of all, we have to understand that it's not up to us. We don't have the intelligence to find, oh, that's how best to progress or anything. Without Srila Prabhupada, without our spiritual masters, the acharyas, we wouldn't have any stance in devotional service anyway. So understanding that, then we simply have to follow what they are giving us. And they are giving us to do both. Like Srila Prabhupada explains deity worship particularly to be pure externally and internally. And also, I mean, we have our personal experience, realization also that without having the fortune of directly seeing somehow or other Sri Sri Radha Gopinath, then it's just, we are not so pure to just engage in chanting the holy name non-stop and feel directly the presence of the Lord, as we wanted on the beginning, Yatra Narayana Sakshat. So wherever there's Krishna Katha, and obviously wherever there's the holy name, the Lord is personally present, but our realization is very low of that in general. So, yeah, it even helps a lot just even to chant better if we actually get to also see the Lord in different forms, as for example in his deity form. And so yeah, Prabhupada, he didn't give us just one part of it and say, oh, you just do your best for that. No, he gave us a complete program of engaging all our senses and engaging us throughout the whole day, of being able to engage in practical devotional service in so many different ways, whatever inclinations we might have. There's no excuse, there's always some way we can engage in devotional service by Prabhupada's mercy. And obviously hearing, chanting, both are important. And hearing in order for us to be able to chant properly. And yeah, and deity worship also, of course. So, yeah. Okay, thank you. Grantarachima Bhagavatam Ki, Srila Prabhupada Ki.